Welcome to Three, a part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Gill with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We have so much to get into on this show. The Nadal Madrid run, the Rome draws, where we'll have both Rafa and Novak on opposite halves of the draw, and plenty of stuff in the on the peripheral as well. But let's start with Madrid, where Rafa comes off of a second round in Barcelona, which was his first event in a while, and follows it up and clearly takes a big step forward. He makes Darwin Blanche look like the 16-year-old who he is in the first round. He beats Alex de Minaur in the second round, the player who he lost to in Barcelona, and it was a physical, 2-hour, two-set match. And then a day off, Pedro Cachin, an even more physical match. It's 3 sets. It's 3 hours. He passes the test. And then he takes on Jiří Lehečka, who hits huge, serves huge, wins 93% of his first serve points, kind of blows Rafa off the court. At that point, maybe physically, you did start to see the deterioration, and Lehečka played incredible. Joel, what did you think of Rafa's Madrid run, and what did you take away from it?
The Demon R effort was quite impressive. I thought that was nice. I mean, to beat someone who'd beaten him before, and you see Nadal eking forward, playing more, and then, well, the physical part just not quite enough. But I enjoyed it, and I think we're all in this phase where just like savor what we have of Nadal. I mean, it's like you're having like a 20-year long ice cream sundae, and here are these final parts of it because we know it's going to end soon, and just savor it. I remember going through this more than 30 years ago with Jimmy Connors, and you see a player who has a long, epic career in their decline. It makes you appreciate the brilliance that much more. That Nadal could play so well for so long. I mean, and you see also when you see, like I felt this while I was watching the Kashin match. It's like, wow, clay court tennis. Wow, the effort it takes to win points on that. And you see Nadal now with the other mortals, with the guys who are top 50, top 30, and what it takes. And you see how well Nadal dominated and how much sheer shot by shot effort it takes to win that way on clay. So it's just I think it makes us all tip our hat. There's also the nicely emotional moment in Madrid where Rafa spoke about that. And I don't know, it's nice to see.
It was such an enjoyable tournament watching Nadal. The scenes of his little boy just over his shoulder, um, Kashin, in reverence asking for his shirt, like these great little moments, and then the tennis itself. Rafa just using his wits and his knowledge of the game and whatever he has left to get these victories. And it ought to be stated that Lehechka was, yes, he put on a dominant performance, but in the next round he was toast. I mean, that kid gave it everything he had to beat Rafa. Um, I, you know, in the post Roger retirement, you'll hear people say, particularly more casual fans, you'll hear them say, Roger should have retired after this point, after he won Wimbledon again. But then you don't get this really sweet denouement where you're just able to savor, and Roger had a really great Wimbledon. It wasn't great how it ended, but some of the matches that he played during that final Wimbledon that he ever played, I just enjoyed the heck out of it. I enjoyed him playing the last French Open that he played. He played that match against Kepfer. So remember that there's some really sweet moments in this time, whether the person goes on to win a slam, another slam or not. So that's why I'm really in the moment with all this and really enjoying it.
I agree with all that. And for Roger, we didn't know as definitively that it was the end of the road. At that point, there were a lot of knee issues and he had missed a lot of time. So it was novelty to see Federer out there, and it was like, oh my God, Federer's playing a tennis match. This is a moment. So in that sense, it was similar, but we didn't even know as well as we do now with Rafa that I think we'll all be surprised if we ever see him play Madrid again. Um, so yeah, I totally agree with all that. Just bringing it to his tennis, though, it, I think he's playing really well. I think it's fair to say. And I had a take that I said on my show, and I want to get your reaction to it. Look, there's a lot of aspects to tennis. You have to serve, you have to play defense sometimes. That stuff aside, I think Nadal right now is easily a top 5 offensive baseliner in the world right now.
Well, he beat Demon R. I mean, after having lost to him.
What does that mean? Does that mean he wins 4 straight matches against every top 10 player he plays?
No, because he's not necessarily a top. I don't think he's a top 5 player because you have to serve and you have to move and you have to be able to hold up physically. Like there are all these things. But when I'm watching him hit the tennis ball from the baseline and dictating play from the baseline and all the variety and the patterns he's playing, I'm like, this is world class. This is elite stuff. This is a level that the rest of the field just hopes to touch at some point and will never probably. Like
I,
I think the way he's hitting the ball right now is amazing.
I know what you're talking about because I closed my eyes during a break and I was like, pretend that you are seeing this player for the very first time and that he's 20 years old. Would you be impressed by this guy? And I would be like so impressed. I would say this guy has loads of potential. I mean, look at his wherewithal and his understanding of the game. That being said, Tennis Channel the other night had on an encore of Nadal and Djokovic in the final of Rome. I want to say it was 2021.
Hmm.
And I watched a good chunk of that. And the speeds were faster, the serves were faster, the movement was faster, the reaction times were faster than everything I had been viewing from Nadal in Madrid just the previous day or two. So that tells me, like, look at how great Rafa really is. And I mean this not disrespectfully, he has in some ways lost a step and he can still hang. I mean, that
Yeah,
is incredible right there.
100%. He's lost a step, but and my point is he still wins tennis matches because he's hitting the ball so well. Like and movement is really important, but you're not moving every point. Sometimes you're standing in the middle of the court and you're dictating, and that's what I think he's doing so well right now.
Well, and among other things, I mean, he's still it's the aura is still the aura, and the person who's playing him, for all they're thinking about playing the ball and all, they know who they're playing, and they know that at any moment things can occur. And the tennis matches have, we all talk about these narrow margins, and I mean, the 4-all, 5-all, tiebreakers, break points. Suddenly, he can come up with something, as he did in his little runette in Madrid. Um, so yeah, well, look, I mean, there's a story that baseball player Ty Cobb was once asked, they said, what would you hit if you were playing today? Because I'd hit about 305. He goes, 305, but you're a lifetime 370 hitter. You hit 400. Yeah, but I'm 71 years old. And so when that has been, 28,000 feet up the mountain and other people have never gotten to 24,000. Yeah. So, and like you said, Amy, too, and we talked about this, seeing someone in decline and still playing illuminates, wow, yeah, that genius. And so maybe this ties into our long going dialogue about exits, how they work, what we think the storyline ought to be. And Nadal's appears to be paced out. There's going to be Roland Garros. There'll probably be the Olympics. That's the hope. He's talked about that, right? Hasn't he talked
Hmm.
about that?
Mhm.
And then
Well,
there's the Laver Cup.
and which
And Laver,
we never talked about this, but he committed to Laver Cup, which a lot of people took as this incredible news because it shows that his season doesn't like end in July.
Well, there are many ways, and it shows you all these different ways that a player can kind of manage their denouement, right? In their ways and kind of like phase it out. Goodbye, Spain. Goodbye, Paris. Um, Wimbledon, Olympics is its own, you know, Spanish celebration, and assuming he gets to partner with Alcaraz, so that's kind of a neat look at and the Olympics is the Olympics and Laver Cup are kind of their own special kind of events. The consequence isn't that significant, but the meaning is.
I think it's actually lucky that the Olympics are happening in Paris at Roland Garros this year because it kind of takes the pressure off of Nadal. If he says goodbye at the French Open, like this is my last French Open, but you're not really saying goodbye to Roland Garros because you could still play here, you know? So I think it depressurizes the whole situation.
I tip my hat to the ITF for scheduling the Olympics in Paris with Nadal in mind. I'm sure when they plan. I also think that, by the way, per that with Paris, I love when these things happen. Are you guys familiar? There's a famous speech by Teddy Roosevelt called "The Man in the Arena."
Yeah.
A lot of athletes talk about it, and the man in the arena. Well, guess what city he gave the speech in? Paris.
Paris? I
Paris,
did not know that.
1910. By the way, it was 50 minutes long. It was a long speech.
Wow.
That was when
So
19.
funny. I was just talking to my daughter about that speech the other day because she was in a situation where she was on a team and half the team quit. And, I was like, you got to go back and read that in the arena, man in the arena speech.
So that he gave it in a 50-minute speech. That's a clay court match of a speech.
Absolutely. Let me make one more point about Nadal's farewell and how it might be different from others, right? Diego Schwartzman announced his retirement this week. Dominic Thiem, there are reports that he is retiring, although not on his own accord. It seems like sponsors have leaked that, unfortunately. That's a more typical thing with them because, like, Thiem got injured and he's having trouble maintaining his status as a top 100 player. Diego Schwartzman is having trouble maintaining his status as a top 100 player. Rafa, yes, his ranking is way down low, but it's not because he doesn't win matches when he's healthy. He's still very much ready, I think, tennis-wise, to win matches when healthy. It's just you can't trust that he's going to hold up and be able to stay out there. So to me, it's different. I think Joel, what do you think? I think for 90% of players, you have to retire because you can't win tennis matches anymore because you're not good enough anymore. And for Rafa, it's a totally different thing. I just can't stay uninjured, and that's why it's time to go.
Well, that right, and also look for 90. How about 98? Right, the body at 98%, like the body and the marketplace push them off the team, right? They push them out of the top 100, and they'll get some wild cards, but they're not there. Nadal, yeah, I guess he can win matches.
It's different. He just beat Alex de Minaur. Schwartzman and Thiem are not beating Alex de Minaur.
They can't beat challengers right now. It is different. Yeah.
It's different, right? But Nadal, even if Nadal wasn't, though, he'd still get wild cards. That he is kind of neat. That he is kind of neat. So yeah, it's a whole different thing for these super geniuses for their 98% of them it's like look at I don't remember how a long-standing top 5-8 player Burdick, how did it end for him? He just decided he could probably have still won matches. Again, occupying the top 10, much less for what was it, Nadal, 912 consecutive weeks? When you've occupied the top 10 that long, and these other guys like Thiem and Schwartzman, who are excellent players, Thiem won a major, just haven't sustained there.
Yeah. All right, let's get to Rome and throw Djokovic in here and circle back to Nadal. But first, Novak skipped Madrid, just like he did last year. And last year it was kind of, I think there was a little bit of an arm issue. And it was like, is that the reason he's withdrawing from Madrid? And I think us three on our show, we were like, I don't know if it's because of the arm. I think he might just not be into Madrid as far as something that helps him get ready for Paris. And then this year, Like he's healthy. He just played Monte Carlo. He made the semifinal. Like he could have played Madrid. I think at this point he's made his stance very clear, which is I don't think Madrid is helpful. And to me, that's why he's skipping it.
Could agree with you more. I think what we're seeing, we saw this last week in the field through Madrid, that these dual gender 96 kind of thousand specials have some consequences of like 12 days, 2 weeks. Even though you're playing as many matches as you would in a week, you're on the clock and the player's on the clock. And I think for a player like Novak, wow, Madrid 2 weeks. Rome is kind of mandatory, and then there's that other week where Novak will definitely not play. But you realize you start to look at like multiple weeks of being on the clock. And Novak's going to be 37 this month. So he's got to kind of pace it out. And it's interesting, the Sunshine Double is the start and finish of a hardcourt season. It's not the build up to the US Open. But
Right.
in Europe, you got forget it. Let's not even forget Monte Carlo, which now seems that it was played about 4 months ago. Right? I mean, we know this. It's like the clay courts. The clay court season almost be broken into halves, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
or pieces. Like what do you do if you're flying top six, and what do you do for the rest? Like Tsitsipas has been hunting down points. He's playing every week he can.
Yeah. He's doing what team used to do.
That's right.
Um, you know, I think the conditions in Madrid because of the altitude, it's clay, but servers do well there. I don't think it's a very good apples to apples. Um, the ball in Madrid and Rome is the same, but it's different than Roland Garros. I mean, there's just like a lot of factors if you're trying to prepare for Roland Garros that it doesn't make sense. Even though he was there, he attended, an awards thing and was just having a blast and all that. He knows what's best for him at this point, but it certainly is understandable that he would skip Madrid. But it's kind of weird, like it was an opportunity maybe for him and Nadal to be at the same tournament at the same time. The opportunities for Nadal and Djokovic to be at the same tournament are just getting fewer and fewer, but it's good that they're both in Rome because of the history that they have. So many epic matches, so many meetings in the finals and trading of the trophy that this tournament, Rome, it's not just a run up to Roland Garros. It's a special tournament, especially for these guys.
Totally. I'll circle back to that. But I think you both made good points. Joel about like the marathon that is playing these 12-day events back to back and how taxing that might be. But the conditions, that's that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I mean, you look at who made the semifinals here, right? Lehechka, Rublev, Fritz, Felix Auger-Aliassime. Madrid it doesn't resemble Roland Garros. These are offense players. These are players who don't want to defend, who don't like to defend, who don't want to play long rallies, save for Rublev, who I do think enjoys them quite a bit. Uh, it's difficult to move. The ball's flying through the air in the altitude, and I think Novak's just like, yeah, this is not a part of the preparation that is going to be optimal. So let's pick up in Rome. So. That's interesting. As we transition, before we get to the draw, you're so right about the history of Nadal Djokovic in Rome. Novak he's always had more success in Rome than he has at Roland Garros against Nadal. And I think that's added to intrigue a lot of the time heading into Paris. And even though throughout history it's usually been Rafa prevails when they play at Chatrier. I think Rome has been an important piece in giving Djokovic that kind of. I don't know that he needs confidence necessarily, but it would give him confidence where it's like, I got him in Rome. Not always, but sometimes. I got him in Rome. Let's get him in Paris. And whether it happens or not, I think it has added to the rivalry.
No
But
question.
what's the most obvious difference, you guys?
3 out of 5 sets.
Right, right.
It's like got him in Rome, got him in Rome. Yep. 1, 2 sets from him. Yeah, one more. I mean, we all know. I mean, that's why I still like the 3 out of 5 at the majors. It's like, okay, the big test. And Novak has of the three of those 3 losses Nadal has had at Roland Garros, 2 of them have come to Novak. So Novak can count on that. He's won Rome 6 times, and yeah, that's a significant tournament in his journey.
It's been
I,
arguably his most consistent in terms of getting to the final.
I just wanted to say this is like I gotta pop this in, sorry, because it's an opportunity for me to say I was wrong. Joel, I love the point that you make about the extending of these Masters 1000 tournaments and how you're on the clock. I thought it would be a good idea. I think it's shaping up to be very questionable. So I was totally wrong about that. Just had to throw that in there.
Sure. No,
Yeah, but something is
it's
going
such an
on.
interesting topic.
Yeah, it's interesting about the whole, you know, what the public wants to see, how it works for the players. The 96 draw is good, but again, the player is kind of committed to that, and Madrid, yeah, how Madrid fits into that is the intriguing one now. It's like Monte Carlo first half. It's not a mandatory. Monte Carlo is not a mandatory 1,000 event, and yeah,
Well,
it's
Joel, let me ask you this. How did Monte Carlo feel? Because at this point now, it's one of the only Masters 1000s that is 1 week with the kind of shrunken draw. Did it feel, it felt different to me.
I think it's felt different for a few years. It feels a little bit like the early, like almost like a prologue, right? Like a prologue, early chapter. It's like the early days kind of thing going on, and it's nice to see, and the club is so elegant, and the people enjoy it, but it doesn't quite feel like it contributes to the whole narrative of the clay court season the way it did when Nadal was winning it. Look what Nadal did for all these clay court tournaments. The whole clay season just got a whole boost up from Nadal. What do you win, like each of them 10 times? You know what I mean?
But I also think like it feels like it has more momentum. Like I like that when Monte Carlo starts on Monday, it does start on Monday, right? I don't
Yep.
You mean what does a 7 day feel like
Yeah,
compared to a
like right. What does
12 day?
that week feel like? To me, that week feels like it has momentum and there's a certain frenzy to it, which reminds me of like the first couple days at majors where it's like, oh my God, 10 matches I need to watch. And
A 7 day, right? Because we're used to the Monday through Sunday storyline. And I remember this
yeah,
when I went to Indian Wells, and Indian Wells went to the 2 weeks, and it's like, and it's 2 weeks, but it's 12 days, and you've got some buys. So when do we start here? When does the story start? It's like a movie. It's like the 7 day one feels like an action movie. Right away, there's a chase scene and a bank robbery and something's going on. The 12 days ones feel like one of these kind of like a romantic comedy or another kind of thing. It's like someone shows up at the airport and someone shows up at the beach house, and they're just kind of, and then, because you don't see with the buys, you don't usually see the top ranked players play till the Saturday.
Right.
Saturday.
32 of them in this new format. Not even like four buys or eight.
Well, that's the 56, right? But the 96, yeah, it's a really great question. On the other hand, at some of these terms, it lets more players play doubles
Yep.
and so on. And then it has this other odd thing where a player who loses in the first week of it will then go somewhere else and play like a 125 or a challenger the second week.
As opposed to twiddling your thumbs. Amy,
Yeah,
do you have something? We got to get this back to Rome, but do you have closing thoughts?
By the end of these tournaments, it seems to have gone on forever and it seems anticlimactic by the final. I didn't realize when I thought this was a good idea, I didn't realize how much I did like the pacing of like a Monte Carlo for
up
these.
to seven
I mean,
day.
you could have maybe extended it by one day, like a Sunday start after
Mhm.
the final of the previous tournament or whatever. Um, but this is just a bit much.
A
Yeah, I
bit
mean,
much how you felt in Madrid, or you feeling the same way with Rome?
Yeah, but I mean, I like Rome now. I'm like, oh, Rome, all this lovely scenery and the fountain and all that. But and it's a tournament that I've never been to in person. But by the end, I'll be so ready for it to be over. Sometimes I actually even miss the final.
I fundamentally hate buys, and that's my big thing on this. Like,
Okay.
I think majors are a beautiful thing because it doesn't matter who you are. If you win 7 matches, you win the tournament. It does not matter if you are Nadal or if you came through qualifying. Like, you got to win 7. And the idea that at these tournaments, if you're seeded, you got to win 5, but everybody else has to win 6. I don't like that. I don't like that the first match is in the second round for some, the first match is in the
Yeah.
first round for others. I think it's totally disjointed, difficult to follow, kind of messes up the stat keeping of it all. I think it's fun. Buys are fundamentally destructive in my opinion. I
Mm,
don't like them, and that's my stance on it all. And also, I don't like how Masters 1000s kind of false start in the first couple days, where it starts, but you don't get great matches right away. And in the old format, you would get that. Let's go Monday, great matches.
hmm
There was no wait for that. So I have some ideas. I'll save those ideas about
Okay.
the actual solution for this, but at the same time, I don't think that this format's going to change. It seems like it's here to stay. Let's talk about the draws now, and we'll go to Novak Djokovic. He gets the winner of Corentin Moutet and Roman Safulin. He is opposite Casper Ruud in his quarter. You got seeded players like Jordan Thompson and Adrian Manarino and Ben Shelton and Karen Khachanov and Francisco Cerundolo and Alejandro Tabilo. Amy, do you think that Djokovic was dealt a difficult quarter, an easy quarter, or somewhere in the middle?
Difficult quarter because of Rude, actually, because everything kind of gets turned on its head. The really great clay court guys sometimes aren't ranked as high as they should be. And some players who are ranked super high, like Medvedev, is not necessarily a great clay court player. So the people who are in that quarter, those players' quarter, get lucky. But if you get Casper Ruud, you're not lucky. And that's why I think it's a difficult quarter for Novak. Was there one other player that I thought would be difficult for him? Not really Hatchinoff. Cerundolo, if he ends up having to face Cerundolo, he's, a great clay court player. Not as good as Casper, but young guy and a great mover. So yeah, his draw in my mind is difficult.
Totally agree. Yeah, the Rude factor. I mean, I think going into this event, I felt like Djokovic and Casper Ruud were two guys who, if they were opposite sides of the draw, like I might have had that as my final, and one of
hmm
them isn't going to make the semi. Rude is winning 80% of his matches this year. He's made 3 straight semifinals in Rome, so he loves these conditions. And Novak, he lost in the quarterfinals of Rome last year to Holger Rune. Didn't matter for Paris. But in my mind, the winner of Djokovic, Rude, if they play in the quarterfinals, is likely to win the whole thing. That's me and my prediction space. But I also agree that there are no massive clear roadblocks up until the quarterfinals for Novak. So I think your assessment of that quarter is really good, Amy. Joel, what are you expecting out of Djokovic in general?
Well, this is a real barometer yet again for him because there's a lot of insufficient data around Novak this year. I mean, he's played less than he has, and even our expectation of him being able to play the Sunshine Double kind of just disintegrated pretty quickly. So that wasn't that active. So it's like, what's going on with him? And then we constantly hearing things about his team and what goes on with that and who Novak is. I wonder if when all is going to be said and done this year, they're going to learn about something physical going on that we haven't learned. If there's something all along that's been physically troubling him, not a major thing because we know about it, but something just kind of nagging that hasn't allowed him to practice, compete, engage to the extent we're used to seeing from him. Or or is he just managing the energy so prudently? Because I think from an emotional standpoint, I think the most important thing for Novak this year is the Olympics.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, it doesn't matter about history or 25 slam. So all these other things are in play, but I think that whole what playing for his country means to him, what the Olympics, and I think the Olympics to me is it's a personally meaningful event. I won't bat an eye if I'll never look, oh, Novak, he never won the Olympics or Roger. I don't think that. But for what it means to the heart of a particular player, and I think for Novak, that's really important. So maybe that's where he's pointing his energy and he wants to make sure don't hurt yourself in Miami or Madrid or even Rome. And let's just stay healthy through this cycle.
I think that's an interesting theory about the physical thing. It's a possibility. I think we know there was the illness in Australia, and then I just don't read much into what happens immediately after the Australian Open, and that's why I kind of look at these next two tournaments, Rome and Roland Garros, as when we're going to really learn about what Novak is going to kind of probably bring for the rest of this year. But he went back to his old physio, whose name is and I might pronounce it wrong, but Gebhard Grich, I want to say, who was his physio from 2009 to 2019. So he's like, let's go back, old reliable. I love that. Like I feel good about that move for some reason. The fact that he's like, let's go to the old physio, let's get back. Something about that move tells me that he's been grinding.
And I've said
Let's
this,
get Marion Vida back in
I
there.
was thinking that too, but yeah, I was thinking, how about and Nikki Pilic, and let's I was thinking that the physio is way more is underrated, is more important to these players than the coach, particularly the more experienced they are. I mean, when I think of Roger, who is look, I like Ivan Lubicic. He's knows tennis, see him doing his scouting. Sure, he's adds incremental value, but the physio knows things that the player doesn't know. Physio holds keys to knowledge that the player, wow, that stretch? I never knew that stretch, or I didn't know this deal. You really my pillows are bad for me?
No, what is it? Goose feather? Tempur-Pedic?
We're pretty sure I can almost guarantee you that if there's the proper pillow to be had, Novak will have it. But again, what these physios know, so yeah, I think that's really great too. And I think that's more of a revealing. And it's just interesting to see how Novak is going to manage his physical thing. It's funny that I think the scar tissue when you're younger is is in the head, and when you're older, it's in the body. I mean, there's still always scar tissue, but it's like, no, it's been through how many practices, how many courts, how many matches, cold night in Rome, a windy day in Paris. Oh, right.
The rude thing is tough, and we agree on that. But Amy, I have a feeling that this is the shut up all the doubters tournament for Novak. That's my sense. Again, I think a lot of the previous struggles of this year can be explained by certain things. He looked better than I thought he would in Monte Carlo, where my expectations were really low, and I actually felt really good about that run that he had in the tennis he played. So I think everything is kind of ramping up to Rome. Again, I don't know. Like I think Rude's going to be tough, so maybe that's how it ends. But I have a feeling that this might be the shut up the doubters tournament.
That he wins it and that's that, or is it more like see to me?
Right. Well, because
Okay,
if he wins Rome, like all of the noise around like he's toast, he's cooked, which has been substantial. Like I don't think that you need to go to the deepest corner of the internet to find the
no,
opinion.
that's not dark web. That's not
No.
dark stuff. But you know, I don't pay attention to that stuff. I watch tennis and I see what these guys do. And we see Novak, and I think like for me, Novak doesn't, yeah, sure, he wins the tournament. That shows something emphatic. That's like, hey, that's almost a home run. Like, here, I am the man. Don't you ever forget it. But to me, similar to what we saw last week with Nadal in Madrid, like, okay, a few matches, play some good tennis, leave healthy, you know, that's fine too.
Yeah,
That
I that's a bold sort of thing to say, Gil. I I keep thinking of how he told Tennis Channel that what he's really pointing toward is the Olympics. So, since this is the last tournament to really gear up for Roland Garros and it's not his best slam, I don't know where he's at. Like Joel said, not enough data. And when there's not enough data because the player hasn't really been playing that many matches, that is, I'm not going to be bullish on that player, even if it is Novak.
All right, but it's a slam. Like I think motivationally, a slam is enough. But for that very reason, it's like I don't care that he lost to Luca Nardi. Like you can get that out of here. I just don't care.
Yeah.
But now I think we'll see. I think we're gonna get Djokovic closer to his best, closer to the good points last year that we saw. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Rafa, he gets Zizou Bergs, the Belgian, in the first round, and then potentially Hubert Hurkacz in the second round. And he is in the bottom quarter with Daniil Medvedev, who obviously retired last week with an injury and is the defending champion. Um, I think Rafa's a favorite against Bergs. And then I actually would favor him against Hurkacz as well. I think he'll be able to make a run. It's just a question for me of physically, again, when does it become I'm on week 2 of tennis? Here's a stat with Nadal. This is the first time he is playing back to back to back events in the calendar, no weeks off, since 2021. And it was the same stretch of events. It was Barcelona, Madrid, Rome. So it's been a while. This has not been a normal thing for him. I think it's good because you know he's going to continue to improve physically, you'd think, but I also feel like it still limits him in a way, and potentially his serve when he goes up against the best players also might limit him.
well, limit and not aid him to some degree to help to put him in his +1 position. It's like you see some of these matches he's doing it with like spark plugs and batteries and inspiration. He's got like, lifesavers in his pocket and mints, and he's just grinding through. I think this first one, I mean, Barca is pretty good, 108 in the world. He won a clay challenger in Tallahassee. I know that's not for Roland Garros. I know that, but at least he's experienced. He's coached by Ruben Bemelmans,
That's
who
green clay, by the way. That's green clay.
that's
Hard
right.
to
That's very different, not significantly different. And yeah, so yes, Nadal, I think he remains a favorite in that match. But it's going to be the thing is with this clay, everything is the true test. It's not like it's not the play, it's not a surface where I'll hit some aces and I'll win this. Like every point's going to be I mean, it's even less than toothpick by toothpick. But and I Nadal's not looking at the draw past that first opponent.
yes.
Play this guy. Okay, who am I?
It's interesting to me that Nadal had a good run in Madrid where a big serve can actually get you somewhere, and Nadal's serve is really suffering right now. And yet he kind of defied what you think would happen. Well, in Rome, I think the serve means even less.
Mhm.
It's really about the grind. Watch Nadal's return position because he was playing around a lot with that in Madrid. We know he likes to stand back. See what he does with different players, especially if he has to play Hurkacz. Yeah, yeah, I this is actually, it's an interesting draw for Nadal, but it's it's not as crazy or challenging, I don't think, as Novak's draw.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, and I think
I
also
have
though.
Well, look, I think with Hurkacz, if you get his serve back in play, like if you return his serve well, you're in really good shape. And Nadal's going to be standing on the back fence on a slow clay court, and I just think I don't know. I think he's too skilled for Hurkacz to serve him off the court. Like I think there's going to be returns in play, and that's why I give Nadal a really good chance in that match.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
drawing errors out of Hurkacz, you can do that. That's doable. And if anyone can extract errors, it's Rafa.
Right, and the whole Hurkacz flat forehand, which we've seen, how many overtime sets have we seen that Hurkacz forehand just a bit betray him, and he's a great player, and great attacking. And if there's another surface, that matchup with Nadal is very different.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
in Rio, Rafa's won the tournament 10 times, and I know this is all like ancient history in the Nadal saga, but it ain't to Hurkacz. Won't be to Hurkacz once he gets on that 4-0 Italico and he's playing Rafa, and Rafa's throwing up those topspin forehands. I think Nadal, it's just it's kind of in his hands. It's his physicality. How much effort does he have to exert to win that first match?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's going to be important. I don't have a lot of faith in like I didn't like the look of that Medvedev injury in Madrid. And I know that I'm sure he's had an MRI, and I'm sure if there was a tear, he would have withdrawn already. So the fact that he's still in the draw tells you something. But I don't know, it's a hip thing, and he couldn't run really at all without pain. Like I didn't like the look of that injury, and I'm concerned for Medvedev coming in trying to defend his title here.
Agree, agree. And then it's interesting given some of the yeah, was that Medvedev's first clay title last year? I think it was.
Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and he's been taking steps to try to improve his game. So, but that's a ways away. That'd be intriguing to see then Rafa play Medvedev if he gets that happens.
Yeah, and then, Sinner and Alcaraz, of course, are not in the tournament. Sinner's got a hip injury. It's like these young guys with hip injuries. Tennis has got to figure out what's going on here.
Well, and it's scheduling also. It's like, so you want me to go to Europe? I'm in Monte Carlo. Then maybe I'm in with these other, Barcelona and some other stuff. I mean, it's each of the slams, their lead up is mirrors the surface. It's like, of course, the clay sees the longest to the longest points, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, there's some thinking going on with that, and some player or the players are going to start to manage their own timetables of tournament commitments.
Yeah, and I think Sinner's been pretty conservative with his scheduling actually, and they've actually valued rest for the most part. It's not like he's been playing 250s. But yeah, I mean, with Alcaraz hurt, Sinner hurt, Medvedev coming off of a withdrawal, Rublev was sick as a dog last week and relied on medication and shots to get through it and won the title. I mean, he's gonna probably hit a wall at this week, I think. Medvedev, it's
I just hope it's not literal. I like Rue. I hope.
yes, yeah. And for that reason, like I think Rome is pretty wide open. Two players who we're really high on are in the quarters, are in the same quarter together, which is Djokovic and Rude. So I think we're going to get some funky semifinalists, honestly.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and did we mention that Djokovic and Ruud have played each other recently in Monte Carlo, and Ruud
Yeah,
got him?
let's end on that. Again, this matchup may or may not happen. We're acting
Yeah,
like
exactly.
right. So, but
Exactly.
just I want Joel's philosophy on this. If Rude beat Djokovic last time, but Djokovic had dominated the head-to-head prior to that, who gets an advantage from the last match based on how that played out? Does my question make sense?
Yeah,
Rude, yeah. Rude has some straws of belief. There's a few straws
I
of
have
belief.
a thought. I take the contrarian.
Me too. But go ahead, Amy.
Or go ahead, Joel. Did you want to finish
All
that?
right, wait. Are you guys? I've got to think that Rude, having beaten him for the first time and got a win, has that. I'm not saying that means Rude's gonna do it twice in a row. As much as I'm thinking he has at least I finally did it. I
You
did
think
it.
that
Of
helps him?
course it helps him. Of course he hadn't been. Of course it helps him. Oh, okay. Hit me, Amy.
All right. I hesitate to bring up this analogy. The first time I'm going to go ahead and go for it. I'm open-minded. The first time I gave birth, they want you to nurse the baby, and I had just given birth, and they want you to feed the baby right away, and I did, and it was successful. And I was like, yes, I did it. And then they came to me 90 minutes later and handed me the baby again and say, do it again. And it's like, what? And that's kind of like, I know when I beat a player that is above me and I really should not have beat and hadn't beat for a long time, and then I have to face that player again. I think the pressure is on the person who climbed the mountain to then do it again. And it's a similar situation with Goff and Swiatek. Coco, I think the pressure is on her to keep beating Iga, and that's a tall task.
All right, I want to go back to this, particularly since I now live in LA, very close to the park where I grew up, and I beat someone who hadn't played me before. See, it's funny. This gets to our thing about competing with friends. This reminds me of our competing with friends thing, and how Amy, how you mentioned how they're my friend, how I kind of like it. See, I think I'd never beaten someone. I beat them. The next time I've got to think, well, why not again? Pressure smash. I mean, it doesn't mean so that's how I see the Ruud. That's how I see the Ruud thing. And you think, Amy, that Ruud is feeling like a dread. It's like, oh my God, can I do it again?
Yeah, like I climbed a mountain. Now you're asking me to climb a mountain again?
All right, we have three different takes, because
Okay.
I'm on Amy's side for a different reason. I think it's more the advantages that Novak gains from actually losing the last match.
I'm not saying
Okay.
Novak didn't
Not just motivationally, but here's my big thing. Djokovic is going to look at that, and there's going to be adjustments made. I lost. Here's what I got to do better. Here's what I'm going to do this time. Adjust. Ruud's going to make no adjustments. It worked. I did it. There's no adjustments. Let's do it again. And I think unless there is some real kind of difficult problems to solve that Ruud kind of unlocked, which I don't think is the case, but unless that were to be the case, I think the player who gets to look at a match and make adjustments and be intellectual about it now has an advantage over the player who's going to go try to do the same thing again.
I think you addressed a different question, Gil. I think you're talking about who has an advantage, and I would agree with you about. I mean, you're right, no question. Novak, I beat this guy many times. I lost him the last time. This does not happen twice in a row. That's Novak saying, and here's what I'm going to do to make sure it doesn't. I get that, but that does not. The pressure is not. It's not like a pressure and the advantage. They each have certain advantages, and I actually beg to differ. I think a guy like Ruud, yeah, it worked. I won. You better be ready to change, because you think he's got. If I'm Ruud's coach, I say, you think this guy's going to take this lying down again? You think he's not going to bring out he's going to do some things different or better? He does not want to lose to you twice in a row. So this gets to our whole thing. I mean, they each. That's what makes it's fun. I played someone once. I beat him the first time we played, and then he beat me the second time. And of course, I said, God darn it, now we have a rivalry. Because if I beat him both times, I don't think it's not a rivalry. It's my dominance. So Novak didn't think he had a rivalry with Casper Ruud at all. Casper Ruud now thinks, hey, we have a rivalry now. I beat you the last time we played. We're engaged. And before he was just, so I think that's the fun part about the game. That's why we so love those big three rivalries, because they were swapping wins. Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova. I'm winning, you're winning. Now we're in it. And we each got to make our adjustments and manage pressure. And I don't like that you beat me the last time and you want to beat me again.
All right, well, hopefully we get a Djokovic Ruud quarterfinal and we get to see how this all plays out. We will be with you, I'm sure, very soon as Rome continues. Enjoy the tournament, everybody. This will do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. Appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.